evening, ghosts and ghouls. You're listening to a horrible podcast.
Good evening. It's the one, the only, JT Ripper.
And I'm Todd of Thunder, and today we're going to be talking about some of those light-hearted movies.
Yeah, for the kids.
Yeah, some of those movies that are good for the whole family, good for kids, might have some horror elements to it, might have some action, adventure, suspense type things to it. Not necessarily what we're used to talking about here, like your Cannibal Holocaust or your Exorcist or...
Show your kids Deep Red.
Yeah. Yeah, nothing like that. We're sticking to the family-friendly movies, the ones you can gather around your fire.
Grave. I'm sorry, Mr. Ripper's in a phallic mood today.
Yeah, we're going to try to, it's a challenge for us to not cuss on this episode. That wasn't discussed beforehand, but I'm just like putting it out there. It's going to be hard because we naturally talk heathenish. Like, without even thinking.
I need a beep button.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be hard, but not really. We're going to talk about some movies that like we legitimately really like. Some of them we've seen from our childhood, and you know, they still stay with us today. And I guess the first one right off the bat is Nightmare Before Christmas, man.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this is a cult classic. This is one of those. It's almost kind of a musical.
Yeah,
honestly,
it's like a musical, Halloween, Christmas, all of it rolled into one type of movie. You can watch this at Halloween time. You can watch it at Thanksgiving time. You can watch it at Christmas time.
Yeah, it's one of those great Tim Burton films. It has that gothic, creepy look like he normally has to most of his movies, like Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah, that's another one that that's a good for the whole family. That's like I said, these movies that we're going to be mentioning is not only going to be like horror related, but you know, anything that kind of is in that world. You know what I mean? Like Edward Scissorhands is definitely in that world because it's I don't know. Like he's not creepy or anything. He's just like odd, right? He like
I mean, some people find him creepy.
Like he fits in that entire world, you know. And, you know, piggybacking off of Nightmare Before Christmas, you have Corpse Bride as well, which is another Tim Burton effort with dun 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 dun, dun Johnny Depp.
Surprise.
Surprise, surprise. So Corpse Bride is another one. You got any, or you just want me to continue and you elaborate?
I'm going to say, of course, my all-time favorite, The Gremlins.
Yeah, I didn't even write that down because I figured that you would have that top.
Of course. Yeah, that's my top go-to movie. The one I rewatched the most, but it's also, it's pretty kid-friendly, I mean, for the most part.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, I don't think there's no cussing in it. Maybe a damn. These damn gremlins.
You lost.
That's not a cuss word.
It is.
Well, I mean, we got to tell them if it's in a movie.
Yeah, but anyway.
Damn ain't a cuss word. It's in the Bible. Lord loves you.
You can't say it. You get suspended from school if you say it.
What's their damn problem?
Speaking of
I'm your damn tour guide.
Speaking of, well, nothing. Just moving forward.
Sorry.
You know, you got to talk about the Addams Family movies. Talk about the recent animated movies and the two, live action films.
I'd go with the live action films, honestly. I would start with that and then work your way to the. If you want to go series wise, nothing wrong with the old black and white series. Great, iconic, good times, and the cartoon series. I thought the cartoon series was amazing.
Yeah, if you want to see a good little cartoons series from the 90s, which, it was one of those things where, like, everything had, like, its own little cartoon series in the 80s and the 90s. Like, even if it was, like, a rated R movie, like RoboCop.
Mm-hmm.
Or, Rambo. Rambo had a freaking animated series. The Mighty Ducks had an animated series. Beetlejuice had an animated series.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, if you don't want to show your kids Beetlejuice, because there is some foul words in it.
Yeah, although I would still
go
say
with the cartoon.
Yeah, the cartoon is great. Although, it's not. The movie is not totally offensive, so I would say go ahead and make that a movie night as well. Beetlejuice is right up there, along with the Goosebumps movies, man. Those are fairly recent new movies that.
Yeah, they're not bad.
They're not bad. They're good. Of course, now that we're older, we're talking from both sides. We're talking from, a kid's point of view and an adult's point of view, because 9 times out of 10, you sit down and watch these with your kids or whatever. So, Goosebumps is one of those things where you won't get insulted. You won't, like, roll your eyes and go, oh, my goodness, when is this going to be over? It's not one of those. It's enjoyable for the whole family. And that's what most of these movies that I wrote down is kind of all about.
Now, as far as the Goosebumps movies go, the movies aren't really creepy. Now, if you want, like, creepiness, I would go with the television series, because those still hold up as pretty creepy.
Yeah, they hold up as pretty good series. Not as good as here's the thing about it. These two get compared all the time, which is, I know what you Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps, right? And here's the thing, both series are great, but I personally prefer Are You Afraid of the Dark? However, they've made, like, some television movies of Are You Afraid of the Dark, like, recently.
Yeah.
And the Goosebumps movies blow their movies out of the water. So It's kind of one of those things, like, I prefer the Are You Afraid of the Dark series as opposed to Goosebumps, but the Goosebumps movies are way better than the television movies that they put out. But, if you got time, watch all of them, to be honest with you. Let's talk about an old one that nobody really ever talks about as far as being creepy. Like, you want to talk about, like, a gateway? Maybe not a gateway into horror films, but a gateway into, I like watching spooky things.
Uh-huh.
Which is The Wizard of Oz.
Interesting. Because I've heard people talk about how horrifying.
Yeah, for a lot of people, when they saw that movie, they were little kids. And when they saw The Wicked Witch, and they saw, like, the flying monkeys and all that stuff.
That's what I was going to say. The monkeys definitely creeped me out as a kid.
Yeah. I mean, that's more of a... First of all, it's just a good movie to watch it anyway, but if you have little ones like 4 or 5 and you really don't want to freak them out, but kind of give them a spook.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Wizard of Oz is kind of...
It's also pretty cool, the theories about how the Wicked Witch was actually the good witch.
Yeah,
I like those.
There's all kinds of theories and stuff. And, here's one that's not talked about. It's a sequel. They made 2 different other versions. They made The Wiz with Michael Jackson and Diane Summer. And they also made Return to Oz. And Return to Oz, that is, I would recommend that for your, like, teenagers, because that's like a really weird movie. It really is. Like like it's on, I believe it's on Disney Plus. If it's not on Disney Plus, it's you can find it somewhere. But
yeah, I'm not sure if that's a Disney property, but hell, go to your local Dollar General. You pretty much find it.
Yeah, you might be able to find it there. You know, it stars the little girl. I can never say her name right, but she grew up and played in. She played in The Waterboy, and she played in The Craft, and she played in American History X.
I know who you're talking about, but her name's slipping me.
Yeah. Anyway, she played in as a little girl, and I would say if you want creepiness and just weirdness, watch Return to Oz. That's a forgotten one.
I got one. Just recently found out about this through TikTok, and it's a prequel to How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the original, and it's called Halloween is Grinch Night.
Yeah, you told me about that yesterday, and I had never heard of it a day in my life.
Yeah, it's you know how he is in How the Grinch Stole Christmas?
Yeah.
But take away the funny elements. So it's kind of creepy. The imagery in it is pretty creepy looking.
Well, you know,
and it's free on YouTube, people. So there's
well,
a
there
free
you
plug
go
for you.
Yeah, if you're wondering where to see that at, I'll probably check that out later on today because, you know, I'd never heard of it, and it's kind of weird. You know, I've seen just about every, you know, cartoon or whatever that they've taken a Dr. Seuss whatever and turned it into a.
Yeah, no, this one it blew my mind. See, TikTok's good for some things.
Yeah, and you know, if you ever want to see a really good movie, again, kind of like what we just talked about with The Wizard of Oz, where, you know, you can definitely say The Grinch with Jim Carrey, and you know, 4 or 5-year-olds watch it and whatever, and you know, he's not like he's mean funny, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he's still, you know, a kid could probably look at it and still get freaked out just because of the way he looks, you know. But we're just rambling on about, you know, shit stuff. Ooh.
Right.
Ooh. Penny in the baggy bank.
Oh, my.
Well, stuff. You know, let's move on to some more movies. How about, I've always liked Monster House.
Monster House has always been a good one.
And, you know, it's got like a really deep meaning, you know, like the old man's wife is actually the house, and
yeah,
she's like jealous and she can't move on, and he's kind of like stuck as an old hermit taking care of her and stuff like that. Like,
yeah.
That's like a very deep meaning to it, but
like if you put that concept into a horror movie and make it scary,
yeah,
that's some pretty it's pretty messed up, honestly.
It really is, and you know, we got to talk about some classics here, man, like 1995's Casper.
I watched this movie so much that it was almost like, you know, when you're you watch a VHS tape so much, like it starts getting that static-y, like white marks on it.
Yeah, you start to wear it out.
Yeah, like right before it breaks. Yeah, I've definitely done this with Casper. The only VHS I've ever broken, like, from watching it so much is Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah.
But Casper, great movie.
Yeah.
Great movie. Probably the first adaptation from cartoon to movie that was pretty successful and done well.
Yeah, I mean, there's been others, but not, you know, Casper was a huge hit in my opinion. I mean,
yeah. And Christina Ricci.
Christina Ricci is one of the best. And
I like her. Speaking of Addams Family, Casper.
Yeah.
She likes the spookiness.
And, you know, Ghostbusters is another one. Not only, again, we talked about films that had their own TV show, The Real Ghostbusters. If you've never seen that one, watch it. It's great. I had the figures. I think it might be on Tubi, but I remember I had the figures, and watch the movies too. The movies again are at times they could be a little adult oriented, but overall I would say they're great, family movies, watch down for a laugh, for a goof or whatever.
Right.
Here's another one that is an animated film that might be my favorite from the last couple of years. Maybe not the last couple of years, maybe the last few years. It came out right around that time that Frankenweenie came out. Well, Frankenweenie's another good one too. Frankenweenie is the animated version is a remake of the live action version.
Really?
Yeah, there's a live action version back in the day. It came out in like the 50s or the 60s.
I did not know that until you just told me that.
Yeah. And but the one that I really like is Paranorman. Yeah, I think Paranorman, you want to talk about a film where the kids love it and it's really for adults as well. I really like Paranorman. That's if we did a top 10 list, some of these movies I really like, but they wouldn't kind of make my list or whatever. It'd be
right.
For the elite of the elite. I put Paranorman in the same, it'd be on the same list as Nightmare Before Christmas. That's how much I like that movie. So
right. No, Paranorman's a great. I think it's. I don't know how well received it is, but I feel like it's one of those. It's going to be one of those cult classics.
Yeah, and take our advice for it. It's worth it. Not only for example, not only can you watch these with your family or your kids or whatever, but if you're single or whatever, if you just have a day off of work and you just chilling at the house, you can enjoy these movies. Unless you're one of these people that are, so gung-ho that you don't watch certain things once you get older, which, if that's your deal, more power to you. Me, I'm not like that. I'm I don't believe in, when I was a child, I think as a child, but now I'm adult and I put away childish things. I'm trying to stay PG, so I won't say what I really think about that.
You're a weenie head if you're like that.
Yeah.
Weenie head.
Speaking of weenies. Let's talk about a recent one that I watched on, we both watched it on Netflix, the Hubie Halloween, which kind of surprised us as being
it's
freaking
good.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was.
Honestly, in all honesty, though, if they would have called this movie The Waterboy Halloween,
yes,
I don't think anybody would have bat an eye. Because it's basically Adam Sandler's. It's basically a combination of Adam Sandler's Waterboy with Paul Blart Mall Cop mixed together.
Yeah,
and he's kind of like this neighborhood.
Nice guy, fixer-upper.
Yeah, he's like the neighborhood watch that always keeps things together, and half of the town thinks he's a joke, and the other half thinks he's really sweet. And you mix all this spooky stuff going around, and I love it. I mean, I've always been an Adam Sandler fan. There's Adam Sandler haters out there, but,
Yeah, this movie is very lighthearted. It actually it's one of the more recent Adam Sandler movies where I can remember actually getting a good chuckle out of it. And if you're familiar with the Adam Sandler movies, yes, you're going to have and see a lot of familiar faces.
Oh, yeah. And, my kid was 14 when he saw that. He just turned 15, so he saw this one. He might been tail end of 13, going on to
Yeah.
14. I can't remember. The movie's about a year, maybe 2 years old at this point.
I think it's almost 2 years at this point.
But, you know, it's good for kids right around that age, you know. Speaking of that, one of my all-time favorites, they're remaking this movie. I get why they're remaking it, but I got a feeling I'm not going to even... I might enjoy the remake. I might. I'm not going to say I won't, but I don't see a point in it, and that's because I thought the 2003 Haunted Mansion with Eddie Murphy was fine.
Yeah, I saw the trailer for it. I'm not looking forward to the new one. It maybe because my expectations are low.
Well, to me,
it might surprise me.
To me, it seems like they want to get away from the comedy aspect of what the first one was,
right,
and go with a more like Disney spin on spookiness or whatever. But I thought that what made the original with Eddie Murphy great was his spontaneous reactions. Like, he is reacting the way that you would want a PG Eddie Murphy dad to react.
Agreed.
Like, and he was funny, you know. You know, I don't know. It's something about, like, some people have that, you know, man, what the heck is going on? You know, that type of deal, and it's not funny. But when Eddie Murphy does it, it's like,
yeah,
you know, it's like one of those.
Chuckle.
Yeah, it's just the way he does it, you know. But I always thought it was fine. And, you know, speaking of that, let's talk about some Disney films like, you know, Halloween Town.
Yeah. It's a couple of them I was going to bring up, but that was definitely one of them.
Yeah, Halloween Town, and I think it's Return to Halloween Town, and there's like 2 or 3 of them.
Yes, 3 of them.
3 of them. And Halloween Town High, is that it?
Maybe.
I believe so, but these movies came out probably like 98-ish. So we were like at the tail end of still being a kid, but just getting into a teenager.
Yeah.
So, you know, we were young enough to watch those and like them, but old enough to watch MTV as well. So we were like right at that perfect age. Like, I think if we would have been a little bit older, we probably would have been like, you know, that's that kid stuff.
Possibly. It takes kind of the look and feel of Hocus Pocus, but a little bit more kid-oriented.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, these were Disney original films.
Yeah.
So these were, you know, back in the day, I don't know if Disney Channel still does it. I know that not everything, most everything is not the same as when we were kids. Like, I'm sorry, people, when we were kids, there wasn't multiple Nickelodeon channels. There was one Nickelodeon channel, and it was awesome. They didn't play the same thing over and 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 over again.
Yeah.
And we also had the Disney Channel. It was one Disney Channel. We didn't have Disney Plus. We didn't have Disney Junior. We didn't have all these Disney blah, blah, blah. It was one channel, and they played great stuff. And they didn't play one thing over and over, you know. They didn't play iCarly and all that stuff over and 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 over again. They actually, you know, it was one channel, and they had multiple content for that channel until, you know, I don't know, they gave up.
Speaking of Nickelodeon, a great series that you should check out if you haven't with your kids is Real Monsters.
Yeah. Real Monsters. That was
with Ickis, Crumb, Oblina.
Yep.
Just you know, monsters trying to pretty much go to school and graduate and be what it's pretty much take on society, but monsters.
Yeah, they're monsters. They're, you know, they
go to school.
They go to school, but not to like learn like we do. They go to school kind of to be honest with you, Monster Inc.
Yeah,
I
was just thinking about it. Pretty much ripped it off.
Yeah, Monsters Inc. Pretty much ripped it off because it's about monsters going to school to learn how to scare people. So, that's a series. And speaking of family movies, you can add Monster Inc. to that movie. That's another. Every once in a while, a Disney animated movie will come along that will intrigue you. It'll be a movie that's not, filled with a bunch of social commentary bull crap. It's just a good movie. Monsters Inc. was one of those movies. Another one is great is Coco. I love Coco. It's about the Day of the Dead, and
Coco's good.
Instead of celebrating the Day of the Dead here on Earth, this person gets sucked into the underworld of the dead. So, good little take on it.
Yeah.
Anyway, continuing with some of the Disney stuff, we mentioned it earlier, Hocus Pocus. I was going to save it for last, but there's some other movies I want to mention. And
there's one in particular that I know that you're going to talk about, but I'm pretty sure you're saving it for last.
I don't know. I'm just picking off random stuff on my list, but Hocus Pocus I wanted to talk about next because it's one of those movies. It's a common movie. It's everybody's favorite or one of their favorites to watch during Halloween time. Mine as well.
Same.
Saw the sequel. Not as good, but still enjoyable. It wasn't
bad.
It was a good effort.
Yeah, it was. I kind of figured before watching it that they were going to try to turn the sisters' face, so to speak, in a term, or turn them good. And they kind of did.
Well, yeah, because they're beloved characters. And, we're not going to elaborate on these. Most of these people have already seen. This is just our little, suggestion. If you're putting together a 31 days of Halloween type of deal
for your kids,
yeah, put these movies on there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some other Disney Channel original movies that don't get as much attention as the Halloween Town movies and stuff like that. And one that I want to mention, they just recently made a sequel to it, but the original is great, and it's Under Wraps.
Yeah, that's
about the mummy.
Yeah,
great movie. I don't remember when it came out, but I remember watching it and just,
really enjoying it.
Yeah, really enjoying it. But one of my favorites, and I'm like, why doesn't people talk about this? It's on Disney Plus. I go there and I watch it at least 2 or 3 times a year because it's literally, I love this movie. It's called Don't Look Under the Bed.
I don't know if I've seen it.
Well, Don't Look Under the Bed, the title of it kind of is misleading because the villain of it is a boogeyman, but you have this girl and she can see this kind of, I don't know, it's like this black boy shows up out of nowhere, but only she can see him, and he's kind of weird and he speaks kind of riddle-ish, everything he says is kind of like in a riddle, and because he's weird, he's not from this planet, and everything, and, he's basically there to help her, solve, like, who or what this boogeyman is.
Oh, okay.
And
I actually might check this out when we get done.
Yeah, if you've never seen it, I guarantee you once it starts playing, you're going to be like, oh, man.
Yeah, it's something I forgot.
Yeah, speaking of that, I had it, and it went away. There was, gosh. Anyway, I guess we'll just move on. If it comes back to me, we'll say it. But yeah, Don't Look Under the Bed. Check that out. Very underrated. And, here's one that I always like. I actually saw this for the first time in school. They showed it to me in school. and it is a animated movie from way back in the day, and it's called The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad.
Oh my God, yes.
And this is kind of like a couple of stories put together, but the main story about Sleepy Hollow and Ichabod Crane and the Headless Horseman is what really grabbed me.
Right.
And this one, you know, it's the old Ichabod Crane where he's like skinny with the long nose, and he almost looks like a scarecrow, and he's the school teacher, and you know, he comes to the little town of Sleepy Hollow, and you know, people keep telling him about the history and the spirit of the Headless Horseman. He's like, and he's an educator, so he doesn't believe any of this nonsense.
Yeah.
And then, you know, boom, you know, he kind of runs into him or whatever. But if you've never seen that, that's all the stories in it are pretty good, but you know, the Ichabod one with Sleepy Hollow is what's really going to stand out. That's kind of like the main event of that trilogy.
Right. Sorry, I had a boop. Well, one television series that we haven't talked about yet that you can't quite watch the actual show, but the cartoon version you can definitely watch with your kids, and that would be Creep Show.
Creep Show?
Tales of the Crypt.
Tales from the Crypt?
Tales from the Crypt.
Tales from the Crypt Keeper.
Keeper. The Peeper Keeper.
Yes. Everybody knows Tales from the Crypt, the TV show, which is, you don't want your 4-year-old to watch that. It's bad language and boobies. However, there is a cartoon called Tales from the Crypt Keeper. Go to Tubi right now. You can download Tubi for free. Type in Tales from the Crypt Keeper, and it's spooky tales for kids. And it's an animated show, and you won't get any of those boobies and bad languages. You'll just
and it's still voiced by the Crypt Keeper.
Yeah, it's still voiced by the guy who does the original Crypt Keeper. You know, it's one of those things that, you know, you see as a kid, and, you know, you kind of forget about it because the other television show, like the real Tales from the Crypt, was so big that it kind of overshadowed any of the cartoon stuff.
Right.
But if you were our age, and you know, you might have forgotten about it, but as soon as somebody mentioned it, you go, oh, yeah. You know, it's one of those deals. Speaking of that, let's talk about, you know, one of my other favorite ones. This is not a Disney film, but it's in the same vein, and that's Ernest Scared Stupid.
I was wondering if you was going to wait to do that one last.
Yeah, Ernest Scared Stupid is so quotable. Like, okay, for those of you that don't know who Ernest is, Ernest P. Worrell was a character made up by Jim Varney. And Jim Varney started off, I believe, in Florida, doing like local little comedy sketches for like commercials for TV or something. But anyway, he created this character named Ernest. And Ernest is kind of like your everyday all-American idiot.
Yes.
And, you know, they made several movies with him. They made Ernest
goes to jail.
Ernest Goes to Jail. Ernest Saves Christmas.
Ernest Goes to Prison. Ernest Goes to the Army.
Yeah, Ernest Goes to the Army. Ernest Goes to School.
Ernest Goes to
Slam Dunk Ernest.
Slam Dunk Ernest.
Like, and to be honest with you, Ernest Saves Christmas is probably the best movie out of all of them. However, we're horror fans, and we love Halloween, so Ernest Scared Stupid has a special place in our hearts.
Oh, my God. I love this movie.
Yeah, it's about, you know, Ernest lives in like a little small town, and, you know, without giving the movie away, if you've never seen it, go check it out. It's about this troll that lives in a tree comes to life.
Yes.
And he starts turning all the kids to like these wooden statues. And it's up to Ernest and the gang to kind of get them all back and send this troll back to the depths of troll land.
Yeah, where the Hades he came from.
Yeah, great movie.
Him and his Miak.
Yeah, Miak. Let's talk about.
Lips.
Here's one of my favorites. You know it's my favorite movie of all time, and that's Little Monsters.
Little Monsters. Got him, need him, want him, got him, have him, need him, got him.
Yeah. And this is not to be confused with a later film with the same title. This movie came out in 1989, and it stars Fred Savage, and it stars Howie Mandel as Maurice. And it is the most fun ever take on the boogeyman under your bed, because they replace boogeyman with actual monsters. You know, the monster in your closet, monster under your bed. They play off of that mythology. And Daniel Stern plays in it. It's a great cast. One of these, and phenomenal soundtrack too. Go listen to that, and then on the soundtrack, it's like a who's who of like 80s synth pop alternative. I mean, it's some great stuff. My favorite movie of all time. I got the main character tattooed on me, so that should tell you something. So
it is definitely it's a cult classic. It's definitely up there with Halloween movies I have to watch every year.
Yes. And speaking of old school, man, I know I'm going to be a little bit more of an expert on this than you are, but you can speak on it as well. You can speak on the television show and stuff like that, which is Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, I was waiting. That's one of the two things I thought you were going to talk about last.
Yeah. You all know the old school Scooby-Doo show. I'm here to tell you that usually as things get older, nothing kind of beats the original, but I personally love the series that came out called Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. I like What's New Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo and Guess Who. I mean, I really like all them movies, or excuse me, all those series. But let me talk about some of the movies. Now, you all probably know about Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. That was like the first movie that they started making, but
right.
Like every year after that, they came out with a new animated, like kind of straight to DVD movie, because I don't know. I mean, you can't put these in theaters, but they're made with love. And my son was such a huge Scooby-Doo fan, I had to watch these movies, and that made me a fan of them. So I consider myself kind of an expert as far as like which ones to tell you to go out of your way to see. And, there's one called Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost. Came out in 1999. That's really good.
That one is good.
Scooby-Doo Franken-Creepy is one of my favorite. That's, that's exactly what you think it is. Franken-Creepy. It's kind of a take on the Frankenstein monster type of deal.
What's the one where it's the daughters of the horror icons like Dracula and stuff like that?
Oh, that group is called the Hex Girls. The Hex Girls are a actual band. They're not real vampires. They just have a gothic theme to them. And they have shown up in multiple series and a couple of the films. But they're called the Hex Girls, and they make like all the music they make are like, really hokey, catchy, kids songs, whatever.
Yeah.
But they're awesome. But if you want one movie specifically for Halloween that's like perfect to watch during Halloween, you want to watch Scooby-Doo and the Goblin King.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite ones. Tim Curry does voices in that Jay Leno does voices in it. There's a bunch of like guest stars and voices in that. And so I would say that that's probably my favorite as far as like if we want to talk about like Halloween. And watch the live action films too. They're funny. They're really funny with Matthew Lillard and everybody. They're awesome too.
Yeah, those actually hold up very well. The second one was okay. It was a step down. I would still like to see a third Scooby movie with the cast still. I know they'd be older, but it'd be cool to see like we haven't got to see like Scoob and the gang older. You know what I mean? Like it would be a new take, the kids of these people.
Well, for those of you wondering about the live action Scooby-Doo movies, the ones that went to theater, there's two of them, there's the Scooby-Doo Monsters Unleashed, and then I think that was two, Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed. The first one was just called Scooby-Doo, right?
Right.
But they did make a television movie called Scooby-Doo Curse of the Lake Monster, which was kind of like a beginning, like the kids were a lot younger in that film. And they have another one called Scooby-Doo The Mystery Begins, which is the same cast as that television crew. Like I said, these were like Cartoon Network live action movies. Now they're not on par with the theatrical movie, obviously, but they're cute. Nothing offensive. And then you have a movie that surprised me because I didn't think I was going to like it. It's called Velma and Daphne. Now this only has Velma and Daphne in it. They like meet each other in high school, and they have to solve a mystery or whatever.
Right.
It's fantastic. It's really good. If you've never seen it, watch it. It's great. I mean, it might be catered more towards little girls, but if you're a Scooby-Doo fan, you don't care. I mean, it's Velma and Daphne, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, Scooby-Doo is definitely, if your kids are into it, do some research because there's a lot of movies that you can keep your kids happy with.
Yeah. Me personally, I was always a fan of a pup named Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, that's the one that we grew up with that was actually on television. Like, they would replay the old Scooby-Doo on Cartoon Network, but, like, if you wanted, like, okay, what's the Scooby-Doo series playing now? It was a pup named Scooby-Doo.
Right.
And this came along in the late 80s, early 90s, where they were doing that with a lot of stuff because they did that. They had the Flintstone Kids. They had, a couple other shows where they were taking
Muppet Babies.
Yeah, Muppet Babies. They were taking like the grown cartoon characters and they were doing the baby stuff
baby
with
kids
them.
Stuff. But I like the kids one because, a pup named Scooby-Doo, because they're not babies. They're actual like small kids.
Yeah, they're kind of like the kid mystery crew.
Yeah. I was always fond of the one you said, Scooby-Doo Zombie Island. That to me is just kind of like I think everybody's go-to, kind of. It's the most popular one.
Because that was the first one. That was the first, like, straight-to-DVD one. That's the one that started it all.
Right.
And, that's the one movie where, like I told you earlier, like, we were just about to leave childhood behind and go into teenagers, but that movie came out just as we were doing that, so we got to see it and still felt like a kid about it. And then as the rest of them came on, we kind of grew up and started, watching our MTV and didn't,
got into Corn and Eminem.
Yeah, all this other stuff is baby stuff,
Bogus.
Everybody goes through that. Another one I want to talk about is I'm not a huge fan of this of this person's entire, movie history with this character, but I love these two movies, and that's Medea's Boo.
Oh yeah.
Like, you want to talk, like this is for a little bit of the older teenager crowd, but yeah, same thing I said about Eddie Murphy earlier. Like, turn it up by 10 with the Medea character. I mean, I went to one of these things, it was like Medea movie after Medea movie after Medea movie, and it kind of got old after a while because it was like the same character, how they'll act, but it's like Medea Boo came out, and it's like, oh, well, this is a little different. Let's put it in a spooky situation. Let's put it in to, make them scared a little bit and everything. And, dude, I love both of those films. I laugh my butt off at both of them. I mean, the characters that were portraying, the story was good. It was like laughs, around every corner to me. So,
yeah.
And here's one that I wanted to talk about, because out of all the movies I mentioned, this might be the most terrifying one for kids. And they have remade this movie, but I haven't seen the remake. I didn't have a desire to watch it. Maybe one day I'll watch it. But if you have never seen the original Witches.
Oh, yes. Good God, what a creep movie.
Yeah, especially that scene where they show their real faces.
Yes.
Yeah. That movie.
That makeup and like prosthetics and effects is still like creepy. Like how they peel like their wigs off and it's like bald, but like it's hair, and
yeah,
their nasty fingers and noses, and ugh.
I mean, they are everything that the old superstition about witches with the moles and the ugliness and everything else. Like, ugh. Plus, they turned the main kid in the movie into a mouse.
Yeah.
I mean, this movie is a lot more. I mean, it's kind of like listening to a band, right? And they have a certain sound to them, and you didn't expect them to get heavy in a breakdown or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like imagine Creed, with arms wide open, then the breakdown comes. You're like, holy crap,
Holy duty.
Yeah. Holy, you put 6-pack of soda in there and everything. And the last movie I wanted to talk about, I saved this one specifically for last because it may be my favorite as far as what I would suggest to you to watch. Your kids watch, you watch as a family, watch by yourself. You've seen it as a kid, pass it along to your kids. Don't be a mom or dad that doesn't introduce your kids to awesome stuff that you were introduced to. That's all I'm going to say. And that movie is The Monster Squad.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yes, The Monster Squad, you can show your kid all the classic Universal monsters. The Wolfman creature from the Black Lagoon, Frankenstein's monster, Dracula. You can have them all in one movie and not be afraid to show your kid, because the Monster Squad is, instead of this being a Goonies gang of people looking for adventure and treasure, this is a monster. This is kids that form a monster club and go out looking for monsters, and they find them. And if you've never seen this movie yourself, first of all, do yourself a favor. And if you don't believe us about, your kids can watch all these movies and you haven't seen them,
watch them.
Watch them, and you can decide for yourself. I guarantee you most of these movies on here are completely rewatchable. You watch them, and then I guarantee you're going to get excited, and you'll be like, oh, I can't wait for the family to come home and we can watch this tonight because I already know it's going to be good. I just want to see the looks on their faces. So those are all the ones that I could think of that are kind of essential that young adults and teenagers and kids and the families and everybody else can kind of gather around, and like I said, you don't have to worry about curse words and boobies and excessive gore and anything like that. These are total, for the most part, family-friendly movies.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we end on Monster Squad, but I didn't throw this in there, and I just want to throw it in there last second. Gremlins 2, if you've seen Gremlins 1 and you haven't seen 2, and you're like, 1 was a little too much, Part 2, it's got some of the same creepy elements from the first one, but it is definitely more funny and over the top. They take a lot of inspiration from your WB cartoons, and they implement a lot of things that you've seen with like Daffy and Bugs and stuff like that. And it's a lot more lighthearted, a lot more funnier, a lot more cool moments, but you still got some creepy elements to it. And it's just a good, genuine family movie, honestly. But it's been real. It's been fun. It's been really fun. I'm JT Riff Raffer.
And I'm Todd of Thunder saying toodaloo.
Holy hell, Wolfman's got nards.